Hey, everybody. Welcome to House of Champions. We have an exclusive reaction to the bombshell that Cristiano Ronaldo just dropped with Piers Morgan. Part two of his interview coming up. Hey, everybody. I'm Michael Lahoud, and I'm joined by Nigel Rio Coker, and we have a newcomer in the hizzy, Eric Krakauer, the Portuguese sensation, so much so we had to call him to get him on the show. But first, as always, Nigel, Eric, we'll just get right into it. Scrap the script. We'll get right into it. How would you assess what the hell we just heard? Because my mind is blown right now.
Well, no, I'm going to let Eric start. Eric is going to start this off in his opinion so far, Mike. I think that's only fair to do our guest. And then also how it's impacting in Portugal, because that's where I probably think it's one of the most important places we need to discuss before we go anywhere else.
Eric, the floor is yours.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And given the recent results, Portugal and Nigeria just ended, and Portugal absolutely trounced the Super Eagles 4-0. Sans Cristiano Ronaldo, it should be said. Gastrointestinal problems is what was reported by the media. I think fitness is an issue as well. I'll begin by saying this, and I've been glued to Portuguese television since this interview, not in its totality aired, but the little snippets that were released. And although they're talking about Cristiano Ronaldo ad nauseum, there isn't really a sense that it has affected the Portuguese national team camp in any way. If anything, there's a lot of harmony. So I want to dispel the notion right away that this is having some sort of negative impact on the team, which it isn't. And I would add to that I think that the communications team for the Portuguese national team really hasn't handled this very well, because they should have come out immediately when the rumors came out about Bruno Fernandes and that non-handshake, and then the video of João Cancelo as well. The comms team should have come out and said, look, there's nothing in this, maybe some snippets from those players, and they haven't done that, and that's why the narrative has sort of run away. But I don't think it's affected the team in any way whatsoever.
Mr. Rio Coker.
Yes.
What say you?
We don't have enough time to get into this, if I'm honest. We really don't have enough time.
You were asking for an hour show before.
I'm slightly different, Michael and Eric. And like I said, I think for me, we talk about the modern age. He talked about a lot of things in these interviews. He talked about the younger generation being different, which is nothing new, because if some of the older players in his generation and my generation, we've said that. We understand that. But the reality of it is times have changed, because the same way that when we were coming through the dressing room, the older players looked at us different and didn't like our approach and how we did certain things, but we turned out and changed. It's about guidance and patience. When I look at this interview, the whole bigger picture I get, it's all me. I'm the black sheep. I mean, we can count the amount of times he says me, being the black sheep, and lies were told, this in the media. But for me, maybe I'm not that bright or not that smart, but this generation is different because they have access to social media, whether it's Instagram, on Twitter accounts, where they get paid crazy money for doing simple adverts and being that brand that they all want to be. And for me, when this all first started, all he had to do is put an Instagram post. If you're going through personal family issues at preseason, and that's why he didn't turn up, put an Instagram post and just ask for your privacy. People in the media and everything can read that and respect that. End of story. There'll be no fake stories made out of that, because this is your domain. You control it. You control what comes out there. It's done and dusted. But you left it. It carried on going. And it seems like, for me, he wanted to get to this point. He wanted to leave Manchester United, and he let all this snowball effect occur of different things. And this is where we're coming to this part. He's absolutely ruined his chance of staying at Manchester United, which I don't believe he wanted to. He's insulted the owners, and I think he did that in a smart way, because he wants the fans on his side. And as much as some of these fans will be on his side, there's still, for me, that arrogance of me. When I look at Ronaldo, before all this interview comes out, I've always said it, and I said it before to you, Michael, I look at a man who is determined, very individual in his set, and for me, he wants to compete against Lionel Messi. He wants to go to a club in Europe, because it's all about numbers. It's all about achieving stuff, because Lionel Messi is still playing at Paris Saint-Germain, still scoring Champions League goals, still making Champions League experiences. That's what Ronaldo wants. He wants to compete against Lionel Messi. That's the decision. So when you talk about it, and then he says the fans will always respect me, and that's a quote. There's just so many troubling quotes that I found in this interview. I am one of the best professionals. Like, you don't say that about yourself. Let other people compliment you about that, which people in the press and media have done. And then he's also quoted that Manchester United need to clean house. There's so much in this interview that it's just not enough time to break down.
Yeah, I will 100% agree with you. And Eric, something that Nigel said that I love you use the word domain. And I think a place that's been his domain, the Portuguese national team, the timing of this interview, the timing of it being right before the World Cup, how does this affect Portuguese preparation and the World Cup campaign for Portugal?
I don't think it does at all. Look, one of the things that we've known about the Portuguese national team for years is that the camp has always been quite harmonious. There's a player who's been included, an FC Porto player. His name is Otávio, Brazilian-born Portuguese national.
Good player.
And he's a tremendous player. And today I thought he was the man of the match for Portugal. But one of the criticisms when he was included in the Portuguese national team was that he was a divisive character. This is a guy who sang on social media a song about Benfica and Benfica players, and said a bunch of things that he shouldn't have said. And when he joined the fray, he was immediately put to the sword by other players like Bernardo Silva, who said in the Portuguese national team there is no, and they use the word clubismo, there is no club rivalry. Okay, when we come in here, it's all about Portugal. So that kind of attitude stays at the door. And some people didn't want him included in the team because of that. So I don't think it affects the national team at all. Look, I don't disagree, though, and this is something that I haven't mentioned yet, with Nigel's take. What Cristiano Ronaldo decided to do was ill-advised. And my first reaction to it is, who's advising him? His agent is Jorge Mendes, who's a super agent. Everybody knows him. He's got a stake in seemingly every club in Europe, right? I mean, he's a total power broker. But apparently he didn't even know that this interview had been done. So this is a decision that Cristiano Ronaldo made by himself. And the problem with Cristiano Ronaldo during his career is that he's always been insulated, and he's been around yes men and women, including his family. He could do no wrong. So whatever he decides to do, whatever tantrum he decides to have, people never chastise him in his inner circle. It's always, okay, Cristiano, and we'll deal with your ego. And it's gotten to this point. However, I will just add this very quickly. This was tactical on his part. I think it backfired in many ways. He wanted, as Nigel suggested, he wanted to end his relationship with Manchester United. But I think he believed that he would get some support from Manchester United fans. And I think what he did not expect is that Manchester United fans have been alienated by him now. He has lost them. And I don't think he intended that to happen. So it was a poor move on his part.
I think, Eric, you probably be very aware of this as well, which is quite funny. And Mike will be aware of this as well. It kind of brings me back to when Roy Keane did his interview. When Roy Keane's time at Manchester United was ended, when he was criticizing the young players. But this is on a different, gigantic scale compared to that.
And he chose Manchester United TV as well, Nigel.
Yes, and he did on Manchester United TV. Yeah. But this guy is doing it with one of the world's biggest press guys, or whatever it is you want to put it, which has gave him some great attention. And this makes me want Arsenal to lose the league title even more so now, because he's an Arsenal fan. But I think for me, that he says he regretted leaving the stadium. And then there's just so much contradiction in everything that he's saying. That's the thing that I don't get. And again, he's trying to be smart in the sense of aiming his anger at the owners. Yeah. He was very disrespectful to Eric ten Hag. And for me, as a player, when you go in there, yes, you're Cristiano Ronaldo. You did great things when you were at Manchester United club previously. You're not Eric ten Hag signing. Eric ten Hag has gone into this job, but you're not his signing. So how can you be upset if he doesn't really fancy you as a player for how he wants to play?
Well, can I just jump in there just real quick, Nigel? Because the one thing is, and I look, just to be clear, this was a mistake on his part, and I think we saw a lot of Cristiano's personality that has resulted in people sort of making him a villain. Even during his time at Real Madrid, anytime they talked about Messi and Ronaldo, Ronaldo was always the villain, and sometimes he deserved it, sometimes he didn't. Messi was always angelic. And he certainly wasn't, right? But more reserved persona, and certainly didn't carry himself in the boisterous way that Cristiano Ronaldo did. I sort of lost my, oh, yes, Eric Ten Hag. But I will say this, you're right that he wasn't Eric Ten Hag's player. But I do believe that there has been some miscommunication between Ten Hag and Cristiano Ronaldo. The moment he says at the beginning of preseason or during preseason that, yes, he is counting on Cristiano Ronaldo, I mean, you got to take his word for that, right? I know Cristiano Ronaldo missed preseason. His daughter was in hospital. He had just lost his son because they were twins a few months before that. So he's had a lot of tumult in his life recently. All I'm going to say about the Eric Ten Hag situation is I don't think he's completely innocent in this, because he's contradicted himself too, right? He has said, I didn't want to put him against, I think it was Manchester City, because I didn't want to disrespect them to only play a few minutes in a loss. And then against Tottenham, that wasn't the case, even though it was a win. So what I'm saying is, I think there has been a lack of clarity, but again, it doesn't justify what Cristiano Ronaldo did.
Yeah, Eric, I want to touch on that
before you go quickly,
yeah,
Max. I know
you
I
go.
was going to say this. I'm glad you brought that point up, Eric.
Yeah.
Let me just tell the fans listening: 99.9% of football managers are liars. They will lie to players. Okay, I've been in dressing room. I've come across loads of managers who lie and don't keep the word. There are very, very few who are honest men and will keep their word and tell you the truth. What Cristiano Ronaldo said there is not new. That happens in football clubs. Real football players will tell you that happens all the time. So that whole situation there, yes, Eric Ten Hag did that, but he's a manager. Managers do that. They do that all the time. It's nothing new. Go on, Mike.
Yeah, no, just to reaffirm what both of you are saying, and mind you, fans who are listening, we're obviously listening to Nigel Reo-Coker, half man, half amazing, 3% bat. Well, I can't say that word. Bat poop crazy. We'll just say that. And Eric Krakauer, play-by-play for Charlotte FC, and esteemed guest of ours on House of Champions. Just to backtrack a bit on how we got here in preseason, Manchester United and Cristiano Ronaldo, the impasse of Ronaldo saying he doesn't want to play for United and maybe he wants to move away because he's a Champions League player and they're in the Europa League. And then the sad passing of his daughter, Bella. Family problems. We've all been there when things happen with our family. You feel for him in that. But then in this interview, it goes from bad to worse, where there's discontent, there's miscommunication. Ronaldo saying that he felt betrayed by Manchester United. He felt that they didn't believe him when he said that he had issues with his daughter's health, and they doubted his words. And Ronaldo quoted as saying, "People forget that I'm a human being. I was going through a difficult time, and the club president didn't believe me, and that was something that hurt me." For both of you, when you hear that does that change any aspect of this interview or how he's behaved, or do you think that's impacted any of this?
I don't think it look, do I think that he has legitimate complaints? Yes. Do I think that this is the way to deal with them? No. Right. And just look, and Nigel would know a lot more about this because he actually had a Premier League career and I didn't, unfortunately. I hardly, had a college career. But yes, managers lie. The difference is we're not talking about an average player here. We're talking about Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the greatest of all time. No matter where you put him on your Mount Rushmore or your top 10 list, he's one of the greatest players that ever lived. And yes, he may be far from the exploits that for him were just like a daily affair. I get that. But you still need to treat him a little bit differently than you do with other players. And I don't think that happened. So I think that's important to point out. Again, not justifying this interview because he said some ridiculous things. I mean, what he said about Wayne Rooney, I don't understand why Wayne Rooney criticized me. Maybe it's because I'm better looking than him. I mean, this just sounds like such an insolent teenager. I mean, that's the kind of things that I would say when I was 12.
Insecure. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just a bit too hard and built different from obviously experiences. But the stuff that he's saying at football clubs is something that we know has been going on for a long time. There's a lot of players that I know, maybe not on the same level as Cristiano Ronaldo, who've been through a lot worse at football clubs. Like for me, he's done it on purpose. He's all about himself. I've always said that. There's nothing wrong with that. You have to respect what he's achieved in his career, what he's done. He has had tunnel vision from the start of his career all the way to take him to where he is now. For some people, that goes down well. For other people, it might not be as palatable. but
Mm.
he is dedicated to what he does at football. But let other people compliment you. When you keep talking about me, black sheep, I'm the best professional ever. That's why I'm still playing at 37. It lets people know the type of person that you are.
100%.
You're really not genuine, and you can't blame or see why maybe some of your teammates in your dressing room might not take to you. Why not go in there as a bit of a figure where, let me help you. This is what you need to do to become better. Or be more caring and open to your teammates. Because when you hear someone talk like that, Mike, I'll tell you this now, with my experience in dressing room, they're not very approachable. They're not good people in the dressing room. There's nothing wrong with that because there's some people who can handle that. I've been in the dressing room with players like that, very selfish minded, all about themselves, very dedicated to their game. No problem. I know how to take them. But for this generation coming through, it's so different. And I'll say this now, there's no way, if any Manchester United fans are listening, any people listening now, anyone can tell me that Cristiano Ronaldo has received more criticism or has been made the black sheep or received more great and negative press than Paul Pogba. Anyone who tells me Ronaldo has received more negative press than Paul Pogba, you are lying to yourself. And Paul Pogba still never went to this lengths, even when he was tried. They tried so hard to sabotage him, not just the press, pundits in the media talking about completely irrelevant stuff, family life, like haircuts, this and that. And this guy's won the World Cup. There's no way anyone can tell me what Paul Pogba received is the same as Cristiano Ronaldo.
Eric, go on.
Mike, just before you jump in, I also want to touch on something that Nigel said earlier on that I think is spot on and isn't talked about enough. When Cristiano Ronaldo said that he wanted to leave Manchester United and he wanted to go and play for a club that was playing in the Champions League, that had a lot to do with Leo Messi. Because when it comes to most of the trophies, Leo Messi has just sort of surpassed him, right? Whether it's a Ballon d'Or, top scorer in La Liga, but the one record or two of the records that he has over Messi, but the one that's important to this conversation here is that he's the all-time top scorer in the Champions League. But if you look at that list, Lionel Messi is not very far behind, and he's playing for a team that has a very good chance of winning it all. And in fact, since he turned 30, this is one of his very best seasons, perhaps not in terms of scoring, although I think he's got 12 in Liga. His assists are racking up. And Cristiano Ronaldo is looking at those numbers and thinking, I don't want him to hit me, right? Or pit me to top spot in the Champions League, because that's something that I can look back on and say, well, you might decide that Lionel Messi is a better footballer than I am, but I'm still the top scorer of all time, the top scorer in the Champions League. And I think he knows that is under threat. Internationally, I think he's out of reach, but that's also one of his concerns.
Yeah, Cristiano Ronaldo out of reach, maybe in goal scoring, and sounds a bit out of touch, given that the World Cup is coming around the corner and these things are happening. And to you, the fans, some interesting comments coming there, comparing Kim Kardashian and Cristiano Ronaldo. Not too dissimilar. I was thinking that when I was watching this interview. same person that does the eyebrows.
This is the thing, though, as well, right? Because when you listen to that interview, he talks about like he just wants to go and play football to be the best he can be and help the club get this and that. You played for Manchester United. There's no way, if you're really that passionate about the club, you'd entertain going to Manchester City. Let's be real. If you really are Manchester United through and through, you want to help the club, you would not have entertained Manchester City and then have to talk to Sir Alex Ferguson to go to Manchester United. That, for me, is just a complete BS. Then you bring up he got offered 350 million to go and play 2 years. He didn't want to, and then they're making lies and this and that. It's just, listen, and I've got nothing against him because I've got my opinion on how I see him. Very dedicated, great professionals, achieve tremendous things in this game of football, but he's very selfish in what he does. And there's nothing wrong with that because that's what's got him to where he's got to. But don't try and portray yourself and put yourself as something else or someone else that you're not. And I don't see that many ex-teammates. I don't know, maybe Eric might tell us this. Have there been many teammates coming to defend him that's been in dressing rooms with him?
Not in this, not about this. And rightly so, but it has to be said right before we completely villainize Cristiano Ronaldo that historically his teammates have really liked him. I mean, when he moved from Manchester United to Barcelona, and and then a few years later, you had that huge rivalry between Barcelona and Real Madrid, which in some ways was fueled, or mostly fueled, by the rivalry between Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. Gerard Piqué said that Cristiano Ronaldo was an excellent teammate, and other people have said that about him as well. That might have changed. Benzema, for example, recently said that Cristiano Ronaldo never reached out to him about the Ballon d'Or, and that could be his competitive side, but it doesn't matter. It's an ugly side to him. But I do want to touch on something that I believe, and most people will probably disagree with me. He's always been driven since his first days at Sporting. You know, when he was coming up at Sporting Club Portugal, the guy that everybody talked about was Ricardo Quaresma, not Cristiano Ronaldo. And it was that drive that allowed him to then become the #1 star. That friendly against Manchester United in the early aughts, where you had the Manchester United players saying that to Alex Ferguson that he needed to be signed. But the sort of narcissist villain, I think that's been something that has progressively gotten worse. And I think one of the things that became the catalyst of that attitude was the way in the beginning of the rivalry between Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo, was the way that both of them were portrayed differently, right? Because he was always the villain, I think he almost took on a little bit of that persona and ran away with it. You know, I really do believe that. That's not to say that the seeds of his personality, weren't there. I just think that they got watered a little bit by the way the media the media talked about that rivalry. I really do. I really do.
That's an interesting take. For me, this is simple. This is someone who's very selfish at the end of the day. He's one of the best footballers to ever grace a field. That cannot be doubted in terms of his goal scoring exploits, in terms of what he's done to the game. But I want to go back to just to revisit something. He talked about the lack of empathy from Erik ten Hag. And when you go back to preseason, Rayo Vallecano doesn't show up to preseason. And then Rayo game, walks out of the stadium, talks about the disrespect that Ten Hag, the lack of empathy, disrespect Ten Hag has shown him. Tottenham Hotspurs leaves not just the game, refuses to go in, final 3 minutes, leaves the stadium. What do you make of that? Do you still have that sense of empathy, or the media blowing that out of proportion? Because that goes against everything that I know as a footballer.
Let's stop making
and I think
excuses.
Nice, you can see that.
He knows what he's doing. He walked out. That's nothing. You and your manager still you're employed. This is a player who now looks at himself in a godlike stature where I'm bigger than the club to do that. That's just the reality. He looks like himself in a godlike stature. And again, with that, what does he do? He apologizes, and he said he goes on social media and Instagram, puts an apology. Why didn't you put a stop to all these other stories on your Instagram where you can say it and have direct access to your fans and people in the world to know what's going on? You don't have to tell them everything, but you could have put a stop to all of this. And the last bit is he makes the quote about Messi, saying basically him and Messi sees him like a teammate. I don't know how true that is, because we haven't heard Lionel Messi's side, whether Messi respects him or not, but he looks at him like a teammate. And I think in the interview as well, he said maybe the greatest players or the toppest players were him, Messi, and maybe Zinedine Zidane. And for me, that's beyond disrespectful when you talk about the original Ronaldo, Ronaldinho, some of the other greats we've seen beforehand, that you don't mention any of them. And I noticed as well, he doesn't say a lot about Brazilian players, because he even tried to leave Brazil national team as a threat for this World Cup. So I'm just listen.
We really know, Nige. You really know that you're pissed he didn't mention you during his initial spell at Manchester United on some of the tackles you laid on him in the middle of the park.
Well, you know, when it comes to like the best of all time, opinion goes into it. I think when you talk about longevity, I don't think you can argue against Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, I think that's the point of discussion. The fact that he's even mentioning Messi and Zidane is quite humble of him.
Maldini. Let's not forget Maldini.
Oh, listen. What
a legend he was. People that's what I'm saying. Like I just don't.
Here we go.
You know what it is, Eric? Let me just say my last bit, and I'm not going to say any more because I'm just over it and frustrated about the nonsense I've seen. My last bit on this is the problem with our generation, society in general, when we get so into this whole celebrity thing. Yes, he's a fantastic footballer, but he's gone to this celebrity level, and it's like people feel he can't do no wrong. And for me and the people listening, it's all BS. Like I've been fortunate to meet a lot of celebrities, and they are like the boss you don't like, the colleague you can't stand, and all that. They are just not real. But when you keep them on this level, this is why they start believing they're like this god-like human.
But I don't think look, but I don't think anybody thinks that way, except for like, those people who create the dichotomy of Messi versus Cristiano Ronaldo, and anything Cristiano Ronaldo does is much better than Messi, and vice versa. Apart from those trolls, right? I don't think there are a lot of people who will say that Cristiano Ronaldo is a spotless character. I think that a lot of people know that there are blemishes to his public persona, even though he's done a lot of good things. I mean, this is a guy who's a real altruist. He gives tons of money away to causes that he believes in. There are numerous stories of him helping kids who have cancer and couldn't afford a treatment. So I don't think that he's holistically a bad person. I think he's just a complete narcissist. I think that absolutely has to be said.
Yeah, no, Eric, you're right. Sorry, I just wanted to. You're 100% right. I do know that he does do a lot of great stuff behind closed doors, but that's not the topic of conversation that I wanted to say. But I do want to acknowledge that he does, and I'm not just picking on him, saying overall, all round, he's a nasty. I'm talking on the football aspect of what we've seen. It hasn't come out good, and you're right in what you're saying, Eric, as well. You do worry who gave him the backing to do this interview, because for me, I don't think it's made him look good in any way.
No. The opposite. Let me sorry, Mike, can I just
go on. No, the floor is yours. Yeah, absolutely.
That you both asked me. I just want to go back to, because you said, Nigel, godlike status. And one of the points that I made on Twitter when everybody was talking about Bruno Fernandes disrespecting him, right, is that simply would not happen in Portugal. Because as much as Cristiano Ronaldo is a celebrity globally, in Portugal, he is an institution. There is absolutely nobody on that team, no matter how big of a player they are, whether it's Cancelo, Bernardo Silva, on and on and on, Bruno Fernandes, nobody would ever publicly embarrass him the way people have suggested Bruno Fernandes did in that handshake, which has been debunked by the Portuguese media a lot of times. He is an absolute institution in that country. I would argue that he and Mourinho in many ways have put Portugal on the map.
Don't discount Eusebio in that conversation as well. Well, we could talk about this for hours on end, but we won't. We're going to close out. But before we do, just want to hit on a couple quotes, and maybe we'll do part 3 or part 4. Producer Des Norris, that's up to you, and House of Champions. Cristiano Ronaldo saying, when asked who he hopes wins the Premier League, he says Arsenal to win the Premier League. Interesting topic there. We could dissect that.
That's what's on the interview.
That's just a bromance there between him and Piers.
And the cherry on top, Ronaldo saying, United fans are always with me. I know that this is going to disappoint a lot of people, but I do not care. It is what it is. And, it just rounds out the curious case.
Let me get the best quote, I believe.
Go on.
There's 2 quotes. Where is it? It's called "Nobody is smarter than me, but I'm not smarter than nobody."
I did catch that one. Yeah.
I didn't understand that. And then I can't wait for this one. I believe I'm going to do an amazing World Cup. I cannot wait, because now with this interview, all eyes are going to be on him at the World Cup. And if he does not have a good World Cup, he better get ready, because then he's going to really know what it feels like to be a black sheep.
Well, he'll have to answer to you, Nigel Coker, and the rest of the House of Champions crew, as well as the rest of the world. That is that exclusive interview, live reaction. I am Michael Lahoud. He is Nigel Coker, and he is also Eric Krakauer, play-by-play from Charlotte FC. Thank you for joining us on House of Champions. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, fellas.